as a venue, Point Leo is fantastic.
Oh, it's fabulous. And this could become an annual thing. In terms of presentation and atmosphere and everything, to some degree, like Pebble Beach.
Exactly. We're shooting to be the Southern Hemisphere's version of all of these.
I used to have one of those.
Did you?
Yeah.
You get a good idea coming out of Mercedes-Benz, racing car, fast, reliable, competition victories, and then an American car salesman comes along and says, you know what I reckon you should do? Knock 1,000 out for sale in America. Max Hoffman twisted their arm and away they went. The next thing you know, it's one of the most glamorous cars in post-war America.
Absolutely. And I think the Gullwing was the one that instigated the current sort of grille look.
Yeah, I think
absolutely.
You're right. Yeah. But isn't it, it's a nice example with those Rudge knockoff wheels, and everybody who's ever done a historic rally in a Gullwing just tells me endlessly how dreadfully hot they are inside.
Oh,
yeah.
You'd have to think the air conditioning would be all that good.
The gentleman who owns that lives over in Ocean Grove, and he dragged it out of a barn in northwest France and recommissioned it and did a ripper job of not restoring it, and then used it as his daily driver in Paris for 7 years, and then brought it home to Australia with him. So it's original hand-painted
what they used to call them? Deux chevaux.
Deux chevaux. Yeah, hand-painted plates that originate from Yon. And he has done such a stellar job of keeping it as original as it would have been as a French daily driver. I drove it from the car park to here, and it was just entertaining.
The old canvas seats and
the whole lot. A fabulous car.
Yeah, Lancia Flaminia.
Flaminia, one of the Pininfarina 2.5 litre cars, which is really like, I mean, from a glamour point of view, it's very hard to conceive that was not a particularly exotic car in its time, but people used to regard these as having humble mechanicals.
Malcolm Fraser was a mad Lancia fan. He walked over broken glass to get to a Lancia.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a great collection of cars in old Daimler sold for
a Daimler,
250,
Daimler.
Rare manual as well.
So incredibly restored. This car is an absolute contender in this class.
Yeah, 100%.
I've got to tell you that the restoration on this car is unbelievable. As a restorer, I'm kind of jealous how good this car has been restored.
Never has a car been defined by its ownership as much as a 600 Benz, which is a bit unfortunate because they were like the pinnacle of engineering in a limousine at the time.
And you could get the long wheelbase and the short wheelbase. That looks like a short wheelbase.
Yeah, the remarkable car.
And we've got the McLaren F1 as well, one of the most significant cars in motoring history.
I've driven it.
Oh, so you've driven this car?
Yeah, I actually drove it from the Adelaide Grand Prix circuit out to Mallala. And did a couple of laps from Mallala.
You'd have rubbed shoulders with Gordon Murray.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, Gordon was engineering Brabham at the time when we were vying for the World Championship. He was engineering PK, and Patrick Head was engineering me.
Do you remember at all your father building this car, or
not really?
Much?
I mean,
No.
I remember Charlie Dean,
Yeah.
who was the guy that basically built the car. He used to work for Repco in their research and development department, and he was the one that actually sourced or built the chassis and sourced the engine. Because the engine, as you probably know, is out of a Maybach German Scout car.
That's right. Yeah.
And it always used to have overheating problems. And it wasn't until later that Ernie Seeliger on Maybach 3 put a Chev Corvette engine in.
Yeah. I remember there's a picture of you sitting on the back of open wheel race car. I don't think
that
it's
was
this
the
car.
250th
Was that the
Maserati in
250th?
Tasmania after he'd won the Australian Grand Prix.
Was that a cool moment as a kid?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're still the only father and son to have ever won a Grand Prix, and he was the first Australian ever to win a Grand Prix outside of Australia. Albeit the New Zealand one. But it still counted to a certain degree. Ever since I can remember, people used to say to me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'd say racing driver. That's all I ever wanted to be. That's all, you know. And thank God I was reasonably successful because I'm bloody hopeless at everything else.
When you look at cars of this era and racing car drivers, I mean, these guys were, you know,
mad. Yeah,
mad. But you're
some could say that about your time in what you did in the late 70s and into the 80s.
Almost even more so.
Absolutely, for sure. Like, I mean, you look at the shunts they have now, and they get out and brush themselves down. Not so long ago, if you had half the shunt they're having now,
right.
you wouldn't be jumping out brushing yourself down. It's amazing how it's all changed, and
Yeah.
Not least of which the retainers, of course.
But it was a great time. I mean, as I said, your father was a car dealer, and quite a few Aussie racing car drivers were car dealers at the
Doug
time.
Whiteford.
Reg Hunt
Yeah.
and those sort of
Yeah.
guys. And it was a period where we had to have Aussie ingenuity like this car, where your dad basically built the car that he was going to race, you know.
Well, that's why they say that Australians and New Zealanders always make the best mechanics,
That's right.
because you can't just literally walk up the road and buy a part. You've got to make it.
Well, we should probably have a bit more of a wander around.
Yeah, sure.
Show you a few cars.
Yeah, absolutely.
Recreation was a factory produced in 1972 for all their sports racing customers. It was a customer order car. You would spec the car and you would get it built for you. So this car has aluminium door skins, plastic plexiglass windows, aluminium engine lid, and you could spec the front with full fiberglass front. So it's a very light car. I mean, it weighs probably 820
Today it'd
kilos.
be carbon fibre.
Today it would be,
Yeah.
but I mean, fiberglass was the technology
absolutely,
at the
yeah.
time, but the factory only made 20 of them, believe it or not. So that's why I had to make a recreation for the customer. I've got all the factory documents, so I gave the documents to the customer as if he was buying a car brand new from Porsche.
Fantastic. I love that.
I mean, you're a Porsche guy too.
I won the
you know.
Australian Sports Saloon and
Absolutely.
GT Championship in a 935, and people said, "What was it like?" So it was like driving a 750 horsepower Volkswagen.
Exactly.
I remember at Oran Park, you'd come through a right-hander to go up over the bridge, and the thing had so much grunt it'd lift the front wheels. I loved that car. It was fantastic to drive.
Yeah.
It was really good fun.
Yeah.
You had to be on top of it a bit.
That's
but,
right.
That's what I love about Porsche. I mean, a brand new Porsche.
Still looks like a Porsche.
Yeah. And I love that.
This is another one of my restorations. I finished it on Thursday at midnight. It was a body shell 3 weeks ago.
That's not an original colour though, is it?
That is the
It is
original
the
colour.
colour, yeah.
So this car is the first RS to compete in the world because it was a rally car. They started their season earlier than the competition cars,
Yeah.
obviously. It is exactly the way it went to its first rally, which was the Circuit of Ireland. It came third in that rally. Cathal Curley, who's a great Irish rally driver, came first in it in the Donegal Rally in 1973. So it's got a great history.
Was it originally right-hand drive?
Originally right-hand drive, an English delivered car at AFN. It went straight from the dealership to the Circuit of Ireland. They put the stickers on it and they raced it straight away.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've got to say that it's just unbelievable. It's absolutely way and above my expectations. It's a magnificent property, and what a wonderful back set for these magnificent cars. What I like is the variety of cars. You know, we've got GTs, sports cars, vintage cars, modern cars. Now, I've been to quite a few, Goodwood, Pebble Beach, so forth and so on, and to come down here in this wonderful setting, the whole atmosphere is just fabulous. It's a great assemblage of cars, and you can only assume that this time next year, it's even going to be bigger and better. I'll be back next year, even if I've got to pay for it myself, which is unusual.